Might include that. Hi everyone, my name is Haley Gross and I am a high school visual arts teacher here at Eisenhower High School in Aldine ISD. So today I'm going to show you a technique that I made up last year to help with abstraction in my classroom. I know it can be a little intimidating to students to have just a white plain piece of paper in front of them because they don't know how to get started. It's a little intimidating. So today we're going to give them those first couple steps and hopefully create a full work of art by the end of your presentation idea here. So this is your starting point. So as far as materials you will need to pick up any glassware. If you prefer, it can be plastic, but you're looking for anything that is transparent, that has a lot of details, designs, anything that you find interesting. And to tell you the truth, I got these from Dollar Tree and Goodwill, so don't go breaking your budget for it. But that is how I incorporated the designs that are going to be changed with the actual light refraction and tracing itself, because we are focusing on the lights and the shadows of these objects that will transfer onto our white piece of paper here. Now, as far as the actual art materials go, I always start off with charcoal sticks or charcoal pencils for my students to use for this assignment, because this is also their introduction to charcoal as a material. We have charcoal whites from General. We have a sharpener, obviously if anything breaks, an eraser if it's necessary to bring out some highlights. We have a ruler to keep our composition straight, blending stub to blend out our values, tape, of course, to tape off the area we aren't using in our paper, and last but not least, the paper itself that we're going to make for our artwork. Now, the artwork size and the paper can change depending on the advancement of your classes. So if you're trying this out in one of your Art 1 classes, you could make it a little bit smaller, a little bit more intimate, whereas in your more advanced classes, maybe a drawing 4, even a painting if you want to study technique and application, you could use a larger piece of paper and see where they take this. So that's all the information I have as far as materials and a little introduction, so have fun watching the demonstration video.
All right, we're going to get started with our project for today. So you can see I have my piece of paper on a flat surface. I measured a 1-inch border around the outside with a ruler and a pencil and put masking tape over that, just to make sure at the end we can have some nice, clean borders around our final work of art. Now, my light source is from the top right. It can be a flashlight, a candle, a cell phone light, anything you have. And I'm starting to move and manipulate that glassware around to get those organic shapes and highlights and lowlights that we're starting to see across our paper. Then I'm taking my charcoal pencil and tracing out the lines and shapes that I desire on my composition. You can see because of these larger objects, I'm starting to get those big gestural swooping lines across the composition. And now with a smaller object, these needle nose pliers, I can get in to some more precise angles and almost more geometric angles to balance out the organicness of the other areas. Speaking of organic, I decided to use a plant in my project. So I did any of those gapped areas. I moved my light source over to the left to get some different angles on my composition. And I also have students that put the light on top of glassware or underneath it just to see how the light would refract onto the paper itself. The last thing I did as a centerpiece to my drawing was I did a contour drawing of that plant itself. Now we're seeing that I'm starting to apply the charcoal. So not only is this a cross-curricular lesson for the light refraction itself connecting to science, we are also getting the students to experiment with charcoal in a brand new way. I wanted to elevate their practice of their values by getting them out of that traditional rectangular value scale. For this experimentation, they don't have the pressure of doing anything realistic, but instead, they can truly experiment with the darkest values we can get with that compressed charcoal, and then they can go into precise highlights with the white chalk we'll see a little bit later. So we're seeing that entire continuum of values here, and the students are able to experiment freely. Now you can see I just got done using the blending stub and I've moved into an eraser to again pull up any of the charcoal that I found unnecessary and incorporate some more shapes there. So the students are able to see that they can create highlights, they can use the values from the blending steps themselves to create the values they desire as well. You can also see I'm using that paper towel underneath my right hand because instead of using my piece of paper and smudging my hand across it, I want to make sure that charcoal stays in place where I apply it. So I like to have that paper towel underneath my hand just in case I was to smudge anything. Now I'm going in as my final touches with that white chalk pencil that we've discussed before. So I'm bringing out some very, very thin lines so I can get a differentiating line quality across the entire composition because those large black spaces that I have are great as a negative or positive space depending on your perspective, but I wanted to add some texture into those to give that illusion of depth across the entire piece. In this section, I didn't really like it, so I decided to blend it out. You have that opportunity if you have a blending stub or even your finger, your natural blending stub. Now is when I like to invite my students to take a step back from their piece, 2 or 3 feet, so they can look at it holistically. This gives them the opportunity to get some insight as to how someone else might view their work. If the darks are all on the left side and their highlights are all on the right side, how might they be able to balance those things out? Once they're able to come back to their work of art with fresh eyes, they can make those revisions necessary for their own successful work of art. Kind of a self evaluation throughout that process. So now when you go to take your tape off, you always want to make sure you have freshly washed hands, nice and clean. Because if you have any charcoal on your hands, obviously your white margins are going to get dirty. So make sure you pull that tape off very, very slowly and make sure your hands and fingers are clean before this finishing step. So this is my final work of art. Depending on what your students use, they can manipulate it in any way, having small or large details, and then go back in and revise over and over again until they're happy with their results.
Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my presentation today. I'm so excited to see the results of your practice as well as the practice of your students in the near future. If you'd like to get in contact with me and share those results, go ahead and tweet at my Twitter handle right here and let me know how it went for you. Things we could improve, things that worked well in your classroom, I'm all ears. So thank you so much. In the meantime, I'm gonna go drink some coffee. Bye.